15 Things You Didn't Know About Walt Disney. Welcome to Alux.com, the place where future billionaires come to get inspired. Hello Aluxers, and welcome back to another amazing video. We cover a lot of really interesting business people and entrepreneurs, but there are very few who are as famous and legendary as Walt Disney. Disney pioneered animation films and shorts for most of his life, producing, directing, and even voicing them. He died in 1966, but his legacy has continued with theme parks, countless new films, merchandise, and lovable characters. Mickey Mouse is still one of the most famous cartoon characters in the world, and he began as one of Disney's sketches in 1928. Because Alux.com is dedicated to becoming the world's best resource on the most influential entrepreneurs and creators in the world, we want to bring you a video about the iconic Disney and the industry he created. So let's take a look at 15 things you didn't know about Walt Disney. Number 1. When Disney first came to Hollywood in 1923, it was to visit his brother who was suffering from tuberculosis. Hollywood was, and is, the center of film production and the cartoon industry, but that wasn't what originally drew the young Walt to it. His brother Roy was convalescing in a hospital there, isolated because he was suffering from TB. Walt came to visit, and when his brother recovered, they formed the Disney Brothers studio. Number 2. When the Disney classic Snow White was released in 1937, one reviewer said it was frankly badly drawn. Despite his animations being extremely popular, he dealt with his fair share of criticism over the years. Even the classic Fantasia was called vulgar, and he was accused of slaughtering J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan in the Times, which further proves that sometimes media can't tell what's good from what's bad. Number 3. Mickey Mouse was originally named Mortimer Mouse, but Disney's wife suggested something cuter, Mickey. Disney's wife Lillian was also a cartoonist and named the iconic mouse during a train journey from New York to California in 1928. Walt was married to Lillian until his death and named one of the railroad cars at Disneyland after her. Number 4. Until 1935, Disney was the only animator allowed to make films in Technicolor. Disney had an exclusive contract with Technicolor, so no one else could animate in the same patented color. This was before Technicolor had managed to integrate itself into mainstream Hollywood. Disney was an early supporter of it. It also didn't hurt that he could stop his main competitors from using it. Number 5. In 1931, Disney had a nervous breakdown because of his tendency to overwork. Disney was in the middle of a tough negotiation with the owner of the Powers Cinephone recording system when he suffered a breakdown. His biographers have also called him a workaholic dreamer who pushed himself too hard. Both contributed to his breakdown and caused him to jet off to South America for an extended, much-needed break. Number 6. Disney was inspired by a theme park in Denmark when he was planning his first theme park. Disney admired the cleanliness and formulaic layout of Tivoli Gardens in Copenhagen, and he wanted his own Disneyland to mimic this. It's suggested that the trash cans were all evenly spaced from the hot dog stands to reflect the number of paces it would take to finish eating a hot dog. Speaking of theme parks, if you've watched our most expensive man-made attractions video, you know how many Disneylands made it into the top 15. His Walt Disney Resort in Florida is the same size of San Francisco, or 2 Manhattan Islands. They invest so much because they actually make twice as much money from their theme parks than they do from their movies. Number 7. Disney won 26 Academy Awards and received 59 nominations. No one has overtaken him yet. He won his first for Best Short Subject in 1932 and was nominated nearly every year of his career. He won for Winnie the Pooh and The Blustery Day posthumously in 1969 and received 7 miniature Oscars, as well as 1 full-sized accolade for Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. Number 8. He may have seemed bold in public, but he was apparently painfully shy. Robert E. Sherwood, a famous American playwright, described Disney as diffident and self-deprecating, as well as extremely shy and insecure. His biographers have found him to have a public and private persona, both of which were very different. A weird fact we wanted to slip in: after releasing The Lion King, Disney was sued by a biologist for defaming hyenas in his movie. Number 9. Some like to think that Disney was cryogenically frozen and buried underneath the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. This isn't true. Walt was actually cremated and had his ashes buried at the Forest Lawn Memorial in Glendale, California. He died of lung cancer, having been a heavy smoker for most of his life, and not even using cigarettes with filters. But his dream was to live forever. He even wanted to sell everything he's ever built to give himself a shot at immortality in the literal meaning of the word. Sadly, the technology just wasn't there. Number 10. Disney designed the opening and closing ceremonies for the 1960 California Winter Olympics. California's Squaw Valley is home to a ski resort and was the location of the 1960 Winter Olympics. Disney was invited to produce the ceremonies, extending the scope of his empire even further than cartoons and theme parks. Number 11. He gave a Nazi propagandist a tour of his studio in 1938. Leni Riefenstahl came to the U.S. in an attempt to get some American endorsement for the 1936 Berlin Games, often termed Hitler's Games. Disney offered to give her a tour of Disney Studios, but refused a private showing of one of her films. She continued to praise Disney for his hospitality, but many who knew him have said he was not an anti-Semite. Number 12. P.L. Travers, the author of Mary Poppins, hated the finished Disney film and regretted selling the rights. As we saw in the recent film Saving Mr. Banks, the author took a lot of convincing to agree to the Disney version of her story, and remained unhappy with it when it was released. In particular, she hated the use of animation in the live-action story, and didn't like the representation of Poppins at all. She believed that all the complexity was taken out of the character. Number 13. Much of the film industry thought the animation of Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs would ruin the Disney organization. Disney was known to persevere when others shied away from something or criticized it. When he first began working on a feature-length animation, even his wife and brother tried to talk him out of it. Thankfully, he persevered, and when Snow White was released, it became the most successful film of 1938. Few know this, but he borrowed all of the money to make the movie. People thought he was insane. It took 3 years to complete it and turned out to be the highest-grossing sound movie ever made at that time. Even today you might not realize, but the movie Tangled had a higher production cost than Avatar. Isn't that crazy? Number 14. When Disney died from lung cancer in 1966, he left 45% of his $20 million estate to his wife and children, 45% to charities, and 10% to his sister and her children. Disney had various reputations. Some thought he was a slave driver who is extremely tough on his employees. Some thought he was a warm, kind person. His love for his family and his charitable nature was clearly shown in his will, though, and he left as much of his estate to arts charities as he did to his family. Also, he has an asteroid named after himself, which is nice. Number 15. Disney owns a lot of big brands. Here's a list. If you've watched our video on Apple, you know they own Pixar. They also own Vice, ABC, ESPN, Lucasfilm, Marvel, Touchstone Pictures, The Muppets, Hollywood Records, Lifetime History, and even Maker Studios, which is a YouTube network that currently is looking to sign our channel. Who knows? Sometime in the future, Alux.com might be a part of Disney. Wouldn't that be weird? Like many entrepreneurs, there are many stories about Walt Disney, his incredible work ethic, and his famous reputation. He is undoubtedly a cultural icon in the fields of filmmaking, animation, and entertainment, and just about as famous as his most famous creation, Mickey Mouse. If he had lived longer, and maybe smoked fewer cigarettes, he would have no doubt have continued to innovate. Thankfully, though, Disney is still one of the most famous companies in the world, and they're continuing to create much-loved animations even without Walt at the helm. Oh, you're still here? Well, here's another amazing fact about Walt Disney for you. The last words he ever wrote were apparently Kurt Russell. On his deathbed, he had scribbled the words as though to start writing a letter, but he died before he could continue. Russell was a child star with Disney at the time, so maybe he just missed out on a promotion. Thank you for spending some time with us, Aluxer. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. If you want more, we handpicked these videos you might enjoy, or head over to Alux.com for the best in fine living content on the planet. Be a part of the largest community of luxury enthusiasts in the world and tell your story.